at Texas Pinball Fest 2019 with legendary Dwight Sullivan, programmer of extraordinaire of Stern Pinball and formerly Williams Pinball.
Correct.
Right?
Williams Valley, right? Worked there for 10 years. And then I worked for Stern for a little while, and then I went back to Williams Valley and then came back to Stern again. So for 30 years now, I've worked at 2 companies and 4 jobs.
And you must like pinball or something because you've stayed in it for this long.
I love pinball, yeah. I played it my whole life.
So this year we are focusing at Texas Pinball Fest Munsters. The Munsters is so amazing. Tell me what it was like creating that game.
It was a lot of fun. Right from the beginning, John wanted to do it and made a great playfield, and we knew it was going to flip really, really well. And then a few months later, we thought we had something special, and it seems like people like it. So I love it.
Awesome. And how do you, on the process of, Stern's a really big company, right? So how does it work to where you pick which games that you're going to be working on the programming and the code on? Is it based off of the designer picks you like a roster, or you're like, I only work with these people? Like, what is that process?
From one game to the next, like every couple of years, it's very different, right? So sometimes it makes sense to stay with the same designer. Sometimes it makes sense to mix up a bit. Sometimes we have a large choice in what we're going to work on next, and sometimes we have a small choice in what we're going to work on next.
Do you have any favorites? Like, I love working with John Borg.
I love working with John Borg. I don't have anyone I don't like working with. Now, at the end of every game, I've done 6 games with Steve Ritchie, and at the end of every Steve Ritchie game, I've promised myself I'm never working with Steve again. But that's
Why?
Well, because he and I have very similar personalities. He and I are both very passionate and both very arrogant, and we butt heads. And and so for the last month of the project, we're like, we're not in a good place.
That's the creative process, Dwight. Come on.
It is. It absolutely is. And then sometime later, all of that's under the bridge, and we end up doing another game together.
Yeah, it sounds like making a movie, that's for sure. We deal with the same things. But when you're working with a designer, everyone kind of has their own, like, Steve Ritchie's a master of flow, and you know when you're seeing a John Borg game or a George Gomez game, like, does that change your job at all? Like, when you're working with a designer, does that change how you approach the coding and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I never really thought of it like that, like the way you put it. What I do is we'll get a whitewood, and then we flip the whitewood, and we let the whitewood talk to us about, well, what's fun to do in this game, and then we want to make rules that align with what's fun to do in the game. So it just naturally happens. What you're saying naturally happens. Like, so in a Steve game, you want to make rules that are fun with flow, and it's just the way it works out.
And does it come down to you to create, like, the storylines of the rules?
Yeah, most of the time it does. Yeah, I'm usually responsible for anything that's not physical. Like, so if you can't touch it, so if it's the story or the rules or the scoring or the lamp effects or the display effects, all of that stuff is me, and for better or for worse.
What's your most favorite game that you've ever programmed? And then I'll tell you mine.
That's a hard choice. They're all my kids, right? So I've done...
There's always a favorite.
Right, there's always a favorite. Well, lately my favorite is Star Wars. It's the only game I currently own. It's my first new in a box game. It's my first Stern game. It's the first time I paid lots of money for a nice toy. So right now it's Star Wars. But
okay, help me out with Star Wars real quick. Who am I supposed to choose, and what should I start off? Because right now I'm like going in between doing like RTD2 or starting the Death Star, but then people are like, no, you need to go with Luke and Tatooine. I'm so confused with that game. Can you give me some tips and pointers?
So my objective wasn't to confuse you. My objective was to give everybody options.
So many options. Yeah.
Right. I love that about playing games. I love options. I love decisions. I love having to make a choice. Anytime I can give that to the player, I feel like I'm doing a good job. I love moving the multiplier. I think it's one of the best rules ever. And then when people started balking at that, I got confused. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? Because it's the best rule ever, right? So people these days, what are you gonna do?
Well, So you see what happens is you're playing the game, you're so intense that action button starts flashing or whatever, and for some reason, right as I train, I'm like, oh, hit the action button because it's going to give me a bonus. And it's like, no, all I'm doing is turning off my multipliers, and then I just keep not doing good.
Right.
It's just learning. Just about learning.
Right. It gives you complete control over what shot you want to be valuable. And then you have other control that's not so direct on how valuable. Right? It's not, I mean, you want to keep your multiplier high, but it's not as easy as it sounds sometimes.
Yeah, so I'm still learning with that game. Luckily, there's tons of tutorials out and stuff.
I love complex games, but so when I play Munsters, which is the opposite, Munsters was never, from the beginning, we designed it to be a simple game. We wanted it to be back to the 90s. And when I play Munsters, I love Munsters. And there's a Star Wars fan on my shoulder going, what the hell are you doing? You can't like this game. This game isn't complex and confusing. And right, it's too simple, but it's still lots of fun. So it's hard to pick a favorite.
All right, here's the question of the hour.
What's your favorite?
Hold on, it's Munsters related, and then I'll go back to my favorite.
All right.
Whose idea was it to have no ball save?
Mine.
Why?
Why? All right, so.
It's so hard.
No. All right, so. No,
scary.
No, but scary is good. Isn't scary good? Like riding a roller coaster. Don't you ride the roller coaster because you know at the end of the day it's going to be safe. At the end of the day, losing your ball in 30 seconds or 5 seconds isn't going to hurt you, right? All right, so I think ball saves can be confusing, and they're coddling, and I want volatility. My main reason for no ball save is I want volatility. I want you to have bad ball, great ball, right? And if your great ball is that much greater compared to all those bad ones, instead of like good ball, great ball, right? If you have, right? I want to make your overall experience really, really good, right? And more fun.
I can appreciate that. So basically what you're saying is you're making better pinball players out of us.
I am. I'm helping you. Right.
So my favorite Dwight Sullivan game is the Whodunit, right? I'm right? That's your game?
That's a great game, yeah.
And the reason why is because it was the first pin that I really realized you could have storylines. And I wasn't just hitting the flashing targets. I'm still kind of a noob. I'm young. And so I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I have to find the murderer. I'm playing Clue on a pinball machine. And so that's all you, right? You created that story?
Correct. I didn't create the story. The whole team, we met in an office and we hammered out the story across a couple of days. But it was my idea to do a story.
Just a couple of days?
Well, yeah.
Professionals.
We all had work to do, so we were all artists and software guys and designers. And so a couple of days. This is my first time at the Texas Pinball Festival. Everyone has told me for the last few years it's the best show. I think this is a pretty great show. Yeah, I'm having a blast. I can't imagine. I love just the game selection, right? There's high speeds and riverboat gamblers and all kinds of games you don't get to see at other shows.
Do you walk around looking for all of your specific games that you've programmed and be like, hey, old child?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, from a distance. Yeah. Right.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Dwight.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too. And I can't wait to see what your next project is.
Me too.